Is Wendi next? Welcome to It's a Crime. I'm your host, Margaret McLean, and we'll be exploring that big question in this episode. The jury foreperson in Donna Adelson's murder trial said something that stunned me as a former prosecutor. She listened to testimony from all the witnesses, including Wendi, and here's her assessment of Wendi.
She's dripping in guilt.
Dripping in guilt. You gotta love that line. And she was a member of the jury that just slammed Donna. They bought into the prosecution's murder and conspiracy charges against Donna, hook, line, and sinker. Now, they came back with guilty verdicts in this complex case in only 3 hours' time, which in my opinion as a lawyer is quite short. In fact, I think it's a little too short, and it means the jurors really had their minds made up before they went into deliberations. But back on the topic of Wendi, my God, she had to say, this juror, that Wendi was dripping with guilt. And that's not just a passing remark. It goes to the very heart of this decade-long disturbing case. I mean, everyone else in this murder for hire plot has been convicted. The question is now, will Wendi be next? And Wendi must be sick to her stomach because she knows the law. She's an immigration attorney. So, briefly, here's the background. Dan Markel, an FSU law professor, was murdered in his garage in Tallahassee in July of 2014. He'd been involved in a bitter custody battle with his ex-wife Wendi, who wanted to move the children to southern Florida to be closer to her wealthy Miami-based family. Their dysfunctional marriage lasted less than 6 years. During divorce proceedings, the couple fought over religious differences, claims of theft, lying, and manipulation. But since then, prosecutors have methodically built their conspiracy and murder for hire case. And here's the motive. Members of the Adelson family hated Dan so much they wanted him out of Wendi's life for good. So they orchestrated a complex murder for hire plot to get the job done. Now, the hitmen, Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera, are behind bars. Their go-between, Catherine Magbanoa, was convicted on murder and conspiracy charges in 2022 and is serving life. Wendi's brother, Charlie Adelson, was convicted a year later of first-degree murder, conspiracy, and solicitation, and he's behind bars. And just recently, the domineering mother of the family, Donna, was convicted of the same murder charges and is awaiting sentencing.
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself.
Now, she'll certainly die in prison. That makes 5 convictions. Yet Wendi, who's at the center of it all, has not been charged. All these people were involved in the murder for hire plot for Wendi's sake. They did it for her so she could be with her kids in southern Florida, near them, near the family. Now that the prosecution has 5 convictions under their belt, they must feel empowered and very confident to bring a case against Wendi. So, where does she stand? Legally speaking, and in my perspective as a former prosecutor, let's analyze it, and I'll play some clips later from the jury foreperson. First, there's the issue of immunity. Wendi has testified in multiple trials under derivative use immunity, meaning her words and anything derived from them can't be used against her. Here's prosecutor Georgia Kappelman mentioning the immunity deal but reminding Wendi that she still may be prosecuted. So, if she's caught lying on the stand, they can't use it against her.
Okay. Which means that nothing you say here in court pursuant to that subpoena can be used against you at a later time. Do you understand that?
I do.
Okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean you could never be prosecuted. It just means that what you say in court could not be used in any future prosecution. Do you understand that?
Yes.
The state of Florida considers her an unindicted co-conspirator. And at one point, State Attorney Jack Campbell said they didn't have enough evidence to arrest Wendi or her father, Harvey. But I wouldn't be surprised if the state changed its mind. So let's examine some of the strengths of the prosecution's case against Wendi. Let's talk about motive. The motive ties back to Wendi. Remember, the prosecution doesn't have to prove motive, but jurors often take it into consideration. Wendi wanted to relocate her children to Miami, but a judge blocked it. She and her family despised her ex-husband so much, and prosecutors will argue that she and her family united to eliminate Dan as an obstacle. Her brother Rob confirmed Donna, the mother's, hatred of Dan and described Wendi as a damsel in distress during the divorce. There's also Wendi's suspicious behavior. Her actions and testimony have fueled suspicion for years. For example, there's the TV joke. She admitted that her brother Charlie joked it was cheaper to buy a TV than hire a hitman. And coincidentally, the day of the murder, Donna arranged a TV of all things to be repaired at Wendi's house. And what about the timing? The hitman, the killers, their deadline was July 18th of 2014. The exact day that Wendi knew Dan was leaving town. That morning, she called Dan about their parenting schedule, even though it was already set. Here's what the foreperson, JC, has to say.
She was 100% involved. 100%. Because how would they know Dan's routine, right? Obviously, they were given his address, whatever. But the killers, the hitmen, they would have needed some sort of insight as to where they can find him. Like what he would be doing, all of that, right? It's crazy.
Further, when Dan was shot dead in his garage, in his car, Wendi encountered a police roadblock near Dan's house, but didn't ask any questions. Instead, she went off to a liquor store that was out of the way.
She encountered the roadblock, turned around real quick, and just went a different way to the liquor store. Then they also brought in another witness. The state brought in another witness, the officer who was working at the roadblock, basically. And he states, which contradicts what Wendi said, that you could see Dan's house, the crime scene, all of the police cars and EMS, whoever else was there, right? You could see that from the house, from the roadblock. And whereas she claimed you couldn't see it. So, knowing that, he also identified her car in the trial during his testimony. He saw her car, and most people, when they get to a roadblock, they, gotta turn slowly to get, oh, what's going on, processing it. No, she, whipped in and out, right? And now knowing that she could see the house, and she didn't make any calls to the daycare, to Dan, to check on him, the kids, no calls to law enforcement to see if anything was okay. Come on. It just doesn't add up.
And later that day, she spoke with her brother Charlie for 18 minutes, discussing once again that TV. Another factor that prosecutors will consider when deciding to charge Wendi is during previous trials, jurors listened to testimony from Wendi. They had a chance to observe her body language and listen to her version of events. So how credible did she come across? Well, here's what the foreperson, JC, has to say about that.
Her whole testimony in her mom's trial, I don't remember. I don't remember 500 sips of water. That has guilt written all over it.
And then other witnesses added even more. Her ex-boyfriend, Jeffrey Lacasse, he said that Wendi told him Charlie had looked into hiring a hitman. And of course, there was the hitman himself, Luis Rivera. He testified they killed Dan for a lady because the lady wants her kids back. And he claimed Wendi paid for the hit. Now, Wendi has always denied involvement. She even testified she was happy in Tallahassee and never wanted to move. So here's the legal reality. Wendi sits at the edge of the conspiracy. Everyone else, the hitman, the middlewoman, her brother, and Wendi's mother, have been convicted. But prosecutors also need independent, airtight evidence. You've got to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt. Her immunity complicates matters. The biggest threat to her, though, is cooperation. If Donna or Charlie flip, Wendi could suddenly find herself at the center of the case. Until then, though, she remains an unindicted co-conspirator. In the court of public opinion, the spotlight is squarely on Wendi. And the question remains, will State Attorney Jack Campbell feel strongly enough about landing a conviction against her? Will they be able to convince another jury beyond a reasonable doubt that she helped the family plot to kill her ex-husband? Will justice be finally achieved all the way for Dan Markel? Once again, please subscribe for further updates and other true crime news. And as always, thank you for watching It's a Crime.